Folks, the Wisconsin Chamber Orchestra's got a treat for you. On February 16th at 7:30 p.m., Canadian pianist Stuart Goodyear returns. One of the best of his generation, Goodyear will perform Mozart's Piano Concerto No. 27 in B-flat. The evening opens with Christopher Blake's Night Journey to Pawarenga and closes on Stravinsky's masterwork, Pulcinella Suite. Get your tickets now at overture.org/WCO. Today on CityCast Madison. Madison's a city of dreamers who can also get stuff done. One such person is the current and now soon-to-be departing CEO of YWCA Madison, Vanessa McDowell Atlas. For the past 7 years, she's led YWCA in its innovative feet-on-the-ground efforts to end racism and uplift women in our area. She's also the first Black woman to ever hold the role. So before Vanessa passes the torch, we sat down with her to hear what's next and get any wisdom she's gained for doing anti-racism work in Madison. It's Wednesday, February 14th. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Vanessa, hello.
Hello. How are you, Bianca? It's good to see you and talk to you today.
It's so good to see you. It's always a pleasure. And I want to ask, how are you? How are you feeling?
Oh, as you can imagine, a mix of emotions. So, day to day, taking a day at a time, but good. I mean, it's a mixture of excitement, a mixture of bittersweet, right? Leaving an organization that I love and love my wife, family, and tiredness. Just trying to wrap up everything. So yeah, it's a mixture of a lot of things, but good.
Yeah. For those first who don't know, what does YWCA do as an organization? Like, what's your mission and what do y'all get up to?
So our mission is to eliminate racism, empower women, and promote peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. And we do that in sort of three programmatic areas, I would say, of housing and shelter, racial justice or race and gender equity work, and then also our job training and transportation work. And so in those three buckets, we have multiple programs that we serve our community with. And so we try to take a holistic approach and being able to provide multiple services to individuals in that building, and then being able to provide employment opportunities and job training opportunities for individuals, transportation, which is huge. So trying to connect all the dots that, individuals may be struggling to find resources for to be able to, really maintain a life here in Madison.
Mm-hmm. And you started with the organization back in 2014, and you were a historic hire for CEO in the 108-year history of the YWCA. When you took on CEO, you were the first Black woman to ever take that position. Yeah. What originally inspired you to want to become the leader, be at the helm?
Great question. So I can't say that it was something that was on my radar. I think it was something that I would say was sort of destined. I think it was something that was purposed in my life. I try to live my life on purpose, right? And trying to figure out how I can best serve my community. And at the time, I was asked by my predecessor to be the interim because she was leaving and taking another opportunity. And I thought, maybe we'll try it. Okay, no problem. I can hold it down for a little bit, right? Is what I thought. They did a national search and it came a time where I either had to make a choice to put my hat in the ring or not. And I really struggled with that because I really thought I knew the historic piece of this and I knew that was a heavy weight for me. Man, it's taken 108 years to get here, right? For an organization who in its mission talks about eliminating racism and empowering women, right? So it's kind of this interesting dynamic that I was wrestling with. And just, whether I wanted to, if I was the right one, a lot of questions. And I was having a conversation with my mom. I tell the story all the time, and my dad, and I was at their house, and they live here, and they often give me guidance. And my mom, she's a trailblazer in her own right. She was the first person to lead the Multicultural Center on UW-Madison's campus. And she, ironically, we were having this conversation. She was telling me about her experience, and she started as an interim and became the permanent. And as we kept talking about it, we realized I was the same age that she was making the same decision. And so it was like, okay,
Wow.
I think I'm supposed to do this.
Yeah,
So,
sometimes the dots are too clear.
so I took that as a sign and put my hat in the ring, and the rest is literal history.
Yeah, and your next move that's sweeping you away will be continuing to support and empower trailblazing women of color.
Yes.
Tell us about that. Where are you going?
Yeah, I'm excited to be a part of an organization called Black Girl Ventures. It's an opportunity where this organization provides social and financial capital to Black and Brown women business owners. And so they do like pitch contests across the nation to funnel some of these dollars to Black and Brown business women owners. And so I'm super excited to step into the role of chief operating officer there, and I'm super excited to be supporting another Black woman's vision. And so, yeah, I can't wait to start.
So, what went into your decision to step away from the YWCA and take this new role?
I'm a woman of faith, and I really try to be intentional about where I am, what I'm doing. As I mentioned earlier, just living in purpose, on purpose. And I kind of have really been feeling in my spirit that my season was kind of setting at YWCA Madison. And some of those signs for me are when my vision starts to wane for a place. I feel like I had vision and moved all the things and pieces I was supposed to move during the time I've been here. And I felt like I had one last thing I really want to complete, which was to own our Empowerment Center building and then be able to sell the other part of our building to Lino and Maria Ruiz, who are a Mexican couple that own El Pastor, because I really wanted to make sure that we had Black and Brown commercial building ownership in South Madison. And so that was sort of my last like project that I felt like I needed to complete before I could feel like I could move on. Ironically, in my faith, the number 7 usually represents completion. And I will have entered my 7th year as CEO here in January. And so it just felt like all of the things were lining up for me to hand the baton off to the next leader who has vision. And I'm super excited for Jerry, who is going to
Yeah.
be leading as our interim CEO. And I just know that Jerry is going to take it even higher. So I'm like, super excited about that.
Yeah, so Jerry Paredes Vasquez
Yeah.
is going to be the interim CEO. And after you just told that story, it is kind of a step into possible being the next leader in general. What might you share about her?
Yeah, so Jerry has led our race and gender equity department for the last 6 years, and is really kind of the engine behind our racial justice summit that we have every year, that I know you have participated in and been in our rooftop party.
Yes,
Damn
last year's life-changing
it.
and
So,
fun and
yeah.
bombastic. The dancing part.
Yeah, so like it's been in my spirit that, she's the right one. The way that Jerry thinks about our mission and lives out our mission, not only in the work, but in life, I think is important. And I know that she has vision for where we can go next. And so I often, tell Jerry that she's brilliant. She's a thought leader. She's someone that always works to work in co-creation with others. And so I think that is going to really be great for the next phase of the next season of YWCA Madison.
So, you're leaving the organization in very strong hands. How are you feeling about the state of YWCA as you leave? You know, now having been there for a decade and been contributing, and as you said, carrying out your vision, what's some of the legacy that you're leaving?
Yeah, it's been interesting. Each year I try to be intentional about setting the tone for the year with a word or a phrase or something that kind of leads us in that year. And so this year I felt led that our theme for the year is reflect. And so it has really been fitting. I'm kind of departing here, and I've just been in reflection mode for a while, and just thinking about all the things that we've been able to accomplish together and how we have drastically changed, in terms of our internal culture. We're definitely not who we used to be, right? And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the work that we have, intentionally been doing to make sure that we are practicing what we're preaching, right? That we're actually saying and living out our values of humanity, community growth, and restoration. And that's something that we put together as a collective YW family right before actually COVID hit, and we didn't know that we would have to use these values, in such a way. And so it's been beautiful just to see how we are interpreting the values and really trying to live them, right? And so I hope to leave that legacy of humanity, community growth, and restoration. I hope to leave a legacy around just being able to be you, be yourself in leadership, not being conformed, but allowing the beautiful pieces and gifts that you have to offer to come out, right? And share with the world. People don't know this, but my staff does very well, because I tell this all the time, that by nature, I'm an introvert. And so this job has has pulled me to really be out there, right? In ways that were uncomfortable, and using my voice. And, it was hard for me in the beginning to share my voice. I was a little scared to do so in large spaces with people. Like, yeah, one on one, cool. But like in front of everybody, not so much. Now it's like the more I have practiced that, now you can't shut me up, right? Like now I'm using my voice wherever I can, to stand on our mission, to stand on who we are, to stand on the fact of bringing voices that sometimes aren't in the room. And so I hope to leave that legacy too, of being able to use your voice, because we need to hear it.
One of the things that's always struck me about all of the staff, including you, who work at YWCA, is that intentionality and saying living on purpose, and the energy of around you saying trying to empower people to show up as themselves. That makes me think of the anti-racism work of that. There's not just one construct. That's what we might have been handed, a white supremacist construct, which that word and phrasing scares a lot of people, but that's what it is, living in a predominantly white culture where there's expectations about how someone might show up. And it can be really challenging for for us to say it, the most politely way,
Yep.
folks of color, to step into leadership. Like, what has that been like for you in Madison?
Yeah, it's definitely been a struggle. I'm not silent about that. I think that things are harder than they need to be, right? I think that there is a lot of bias. I talk all the time about dealing with racism, sexism, and ageism, quite frankly, in this role. And how to have to navigate that every day is exhausting, right? I think there are spaces of opportunity of growth for our community around this, and I have seen, sparks of it just in the work that we do, and it's one of the rewarding pieces, I think, to the work when the light bulb comes on for people, and they're like, "Oh, so yeah, what I was doing." was problematic. Yes, it was. Right.
Dun, dun, dun,
Uh,
dun.
and
Level
so,
3.
right. And so I think for me, it has been one of those things where I don't want to be silent or create a picture about leadership as a Black woman and sugarcoat it, because I want people to really understand how hard it is. And I want people to really try to see in what ways do they contribute to it being hard. I think sometimes all the hoops we have to jump through sometimes are ridiculous. I have watched and been a witness to just some of the processes that our city puts in place, and they're designed, on face to be supportive of communities of color, but really they're a deterrent to communities of color. And that right there is just disheartening, right? Having to jump through hoops to do the right thing, or jump through hoops just for what's right,
Hmm.
can is a challenge. And
Yeah.
so I would say I don't like to, gloss it, or I don't like to make it seem like, oh, because I always get the question about what is, uh great about Madison, or what's and give me something that's challenging. I'm like, well, can I just tell you what I want to tell you? it
Yes.
just it's challenging, right?
Yeah. Can
Uh
I give you the gift of my honesty? Can you be interested in my full truth and what's true
yes,
for me and my experience?
yes,
Because people, it is particularly disturbing when you do that and it's rejected, because it's a
yes,
vulnerable space to share criticism, frankly.
yes.
Yeah.
I hope that I have, in connection to your other question about legacy, I hope that I have left a legacy in broader in this city around breaking down doors and opening doors for others to be able to come through a little easier than I've had to do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any specifics that you could share about how you could see Madison maybe, over the next, I'm just going to be generous, 10 years? um, Taking new steps, like things that you've really hoped to see around eliminating racism?
Yeah, I mean, one off the top of my head right now is we have to figure out this housing crisis. We have to think outside the box. I think we're too, in the box with our thinking around how to help solve what affordable housing could look like in Madison. I don't think we have even touched the surface of trying to figure out what that looks like. And what I mean specifically about that is, how do we bring communities of color back in? Because I feel like they have been pushed out because we can't afford to live here. That needs to be figured out quickly, because I feel like we're in an interesting phase. It's almost like we're at a crossroads where we can either go right or we can go left, and as a city. And I think if we do not really figure out what it will take to make that a priority, I think we're going left. I think also, with tied to that is home ownership, particularly for Black and Brown folks. I personally have a commitment to that, and seeing that grow. I have my own LLC that I work in collaboration with my business partner Kamal Calloway, called Madison Roots, which is the goal is to create Black wealth in the Madison community through home ownership, right? And so things like that, thinking of ideas like that to help us think different or outside the box of how can we make this better for people of color. We have got to be able to make Madison a space that everybody feels like they belong. I mean, when you think about the talent or the what there is to do here for communities of color, particularly the Black community, it's lacking, but we're often faced with, we may have one place that we can go to that folks want to go to, and then it gets shut down. right? Because it's over policed, or, all these things that happen that create an environment where we, in particularly, speaking of my own identity, we as Black people don't feel like we belong here, right? Or that we're not wanted here, right? And so we got to figure that out. And it can't be a 10-year plan. It's got to be an immediate plan of what does that look like? And then how do we get the voices? And when I say voices, I mean we're not a monolith as a community. So how do we get as many voices as we can of Black and Brown communities to talk about what our needs are and then have support behind it? And I would add, how do we contribute financially to organizations that are led by people of color doing the work for people of color? Because I think we have a disconnect sometimes, where sometimes we have our white counterparts that are trying to do the work on our behalf and they get that support. But then you have us who, hey, we are in this identity and we don't get any support. And so those are just a few things that, come to rise at the top of my head of just, to me, tangible things that we could be doing in our community to make it better for all.
Absolutely. I had so many reactions to that. And one of the main ones that are sticking out is I think we see that people love us on the signs around the houses and in the neighborhoods. But when there are initiatives, and all of this talk about diversity and bringing folks in, when you're actually at the table, how do you not totally alienate the people of color and respect them and include them meaningfully? Because I think there's a lot of work. I don't need to tell you, but a lot of work there to be done. And that's one of the types of programming that YWCA does, is actually training around anti-racism and how to not alienate and support and empower the people of color. And a lot of this discussion with the city, I said 10 years from now, but it's changing rapidly. We're growing extremely fast. And we hear a lot about attracting new people and keeping the new people here. And it's like, what about the people who are already here and the people of color that are struggling? So those are my big reactions. And, for folks who haven't engaged with YWCA, I want to ask, what do you feel like the YWCA's most promising programming is around addressing these gaps in understanding?
Well, I think it's the totality of who we are, quite frankly. I can't name a program per se that doesn't tackle all of this in some form or fashion, right? I think we live and breathe our mission in every aspect of the work that we do. So yes, we have opportunities where people can engage in real work around when you say you want to be equitable as an organization, then we're going to come in there for about 2 to 3 years and really do some deep work, right? We're not a checkbox organization. We are very much a relational organization. We're an organization that really operates in practice and not just verbiage, I'll say. Right.
Not just talk.
And I think people get lost, and particularly our white counterparts get lost in thinking it's too big, right? That racism and this problem, it's just too big. And then they get in a point of being stifled or feeling like they can't do anything. And so I always try to find ways to give them tangible things that you can do, which is, I love the question because it requires action. What is your action step that you're going to take that is going to be a step in the direction of making Madison better for the Black and Brown community? What action are you going to do? Not what you're saying, not all these conversations we're having. What is your tangible action that you're going to do? And I think being able to see, to your point, what's going on in our city with the rapid growth and the gentrification and all the things that are happening, I think we're missing that part. And when you were talking about, how we're invited into the conversation or to the table, can we create the table? Can we be the ones that can lead it? And I think that's been the issue as well, we're often brought in once the idea has been put and set in stone, and then now you want to get our feedback on what you created, and it's too late. I want to see where communities of color are engaged to say, hey, here's something we're thinking about, try to figure out what ideas do you all have and how can we fund it? How can we get behind it? That's a totally different way of doing it, right? Housing. What kind of housing would you like to see? Not let's build something and then say, fit in this, what we created, these projects we created. I'm just being honest, right? And so I think we just have to be able to think differently about the approach, right? And how we are engaging people.
Well, Vanessa, we and Madison have so much gratitude to share with you, speaking for myself and so many other people, and what you've done with your leadership at YWCA is really incredible. I know you'll be missed, and it's really exciting that you're going on to this national platform as well.
Thank you so much, Big. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate being able to share my voice and being invited to share my voice in a real way. So thank you, Bianca, for that.
It's our honor. That's Vanessa McDowell Atlas, departing CEO of YWCA Madison and soon to be Chief Operating Officer of Black Girl Ventures. Her last day is this Friday, February 16th. If you'd like to follow YWCA's work, head to our show notes for a link. That's all for today here on CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin. If you enjoyed the show, why not share this episode with the most purpose-driven person you know? We'll be back tomorrow morning with more stories from around the city. Until then, keep it anti-racist.